You know, I had a strange email come across my desk the other day. It said that due to severe budget cuts, there was an elementary school that was eliminating all education support professional positions. It went on to say that teachers in grades K through 2 should report to the cafeteria at 5 a.m. to begin preparing breakfast and lunch. They were supposed to plan the menus and order the supplies, drive to the warehouse to pick up those supplies. They were supposed to serve students and clean the kitchen. And by the way, it had a reminder, don't forget to ask your colleagues to cover your classes while you're cleaning the kitchen after breakfast and lunch. Teachers in grades K through 2, or excuse me, teachers in grades, I said 3 through 5 first, right? Oh, I said K through 2. Okay, I got to get this right. The teachers in grades 3 through 5, this is really important that the right ones do the right thing. They are to report to the bus barns at 5 a.m., and they are responsible not only to drive the bus, but to do the maintenance. And don't forget, you do this after school also. And all teachers will vacuum, dust, and empty all garbage cans in their classrooms. Principals and vice principals, you will answer phones, write notes to parents, arrange for subs, develop calendars, register students, record attendance records, and deal with students who get ill during the day. And oh yes, you clean the hallways, the locker rooms, the gymnasium, and the cafeteria. But obviously this was just a fake email because every first grader knows you cannot run a school without education support professionals. You know, even within that humor, it kind of reminds you of the challenges we face all across this country, especially our education support professionals. And these economic times, this crisis that our nation is facing, it has impacted us in so many ways. I mean, our entire communities, the parents of the students we teach, our own members, public education as a whole, literally just everyone. And people are actually quite worried. They're pessimistic. They don't know if they should believe that it's going to get better. In a recent poll, only 37% of the people believed that America's best days were ahead. And 55% believed it was very or somewhat not likely that today's youth would have a better life than their parents. That's really a sad thing, to think that their dream and vision of the future is so negative. I read an article by a gentleman named John Talton. He writes for the Seattle Times. And his comment was that the American promise is at a crossroads. The American promise. And he talked about how much America has changed. And he took the years following the Depression and World War II from 1947 to 79, that 32-year period. And he talked about how America changed in that 32 years. Productivity went up 119%. Hourly wages doubled. They went up 100%. The lowest 1/5 of wage earners, their wages went up 122%, and the top 20%, or 1/5, their incomes went up 99%. See, it was a time where, as they say, the tide lifts all boats. Everyone was doing better. It was a time of the GI Bill when returning veterans had an opportunity to go to college that they would have never had before. It was a time of the National Defense Education Act. It was a time of the Elementary Secondary Education Act to give poor kids a step up to level the playing field. It was the time of the Civil Rights Movement when we believed that all meant all, that all people are created equal and ought to have those rights. He then contrasted it with the years since, from 1980 to 2009. Productivity didn't go up quite as much, 80%. But in those 29 years, hourly wages went up 8%. The lowest 1/5, or 20%, their wages went up only 18%. But if you looked at that top 20%, take out the absolute top 1%, but all the other 19%, their income went up 65%, 3.5 times that of the lower. And the top 1%, their wages went up 275%. So it was a time that the first period compared to the second, where all of a sudden middle class, the dreams, the hopes were disappearing. It's a time when a few get more and more get less. And in those early years, see, what makes that so important in that 47 to 79, that's when union membership hit its peak in this country. Paid health insurance by the employer and pensions were becoming the norm, and there was a progressive income tax system. In the years since 1980, union membership has been on a steady decline. Income taxes are no longer progressive. In fact, those who make the most often pay the least. So we have really changed. It's the 99% versus the 1%. And for that 1%, their strategy is very clear. They just attack anyone who's in their way, like unions. They want to silence the voice of the middle class. Like voter suppression, some 30 states introduced legislation that would limit people's ability to vote. And I'm sure it's just coincidence that the three groups that are impacted the most by those voter suppression laws, the elderly, African Americans, and college-age students. Now, it couldn't be that they targeted those three groups because they all voted for Obama 75% or more. Surely that wouldn't be why. And why would they attack a union? I mean, doesn't it make sense to have a voice? I mean, do you believe that 5-day work weeks, 40-hour work week, vacations, health care were given by benevolent CEOs? Those were fought for. They were earned by unions. And they want them gone. Meanwhile, the 99%, we dream of times when we were young and what we believed in the vision for America. That if you worked hard, if you applied yourself, if you were flexible, you could follow your dream. But that big dream is becoming more and more elusive to more and more people. The FDR Memorial in Washington, D.C., carved in one of the walls is a quote by FDR. And he was talking about America, very different time in terms of years, many years ago, but a difficult time following the Depression, where a country was trying to get back on its feet. And the first time I saw that quote, I was so moved by it, I took a picture. I didn't have anything to write it down. And I can't think of any other quote that more clearly defines what we're facing in America in 2012. And what he said is, about America, the test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much, but whether we provide enough for those who have too little. Too little hope, too little possibilities, too little opportunity and access. And to me, it so clearly defines that's the debate. The crossroads that John Talbot was talking about. Which road are we going to take in America? And those elections will be from the president, Congress, governors, state houses, school boards. And every single one of those elected people are going to decide which vision they believe is the right one for America. I know which one I'm fighting for. You know, my guess is that all of us in this room are probably pretty much alike, and that the opportunities that we received in life were not due to wealth or social status of our parents. We got it because there was a possibility, a dream, that you could choose where you wanted to go, and we made it happen. As NEA looks at this crossroads, We are preparing. Today, when Becky talked to you, she talked about this development of the 2012 to 14 budget. That in all of the work we're doing, we're talking about 2 strategic goals, and one of them is to play defense. I don't care where these things pop up. No matter what they throw at us, we're going to be there and we're going to beat them back. We're going to beat them wherever they show their face. Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, Idaho, Florida, Maine, New Hampshire, everywhere. We have to be there. But we have to build our ability to do that by organizing. And you don't do that by sending emails. You don't do that by sending out letters. It's back to one-on-one, face-to-face, saying, I need you to be part of this. You know, in my state, it was mentioned we lost payroll deduction in Arizona. And I was talking to my local president. I said, so Chris, how's it going in terms of membership? And he said, my local had 1,350 members, and he said, we lost 180. He said, we're now the largest local in Arizona. We never used to be. I said, wow. So the others lost a lot. He said, yes. I said, so how did you manage to only lose 180? He said, we went to every single person face to face and then did 3 follow-ups. We're going to have to do that. It's not enough to have a good bargaining committee and grievance processing. You need to do that to every single person face to face. This is the challenge we face. Will you join us? Will you be part of this? That's what it means to play defense and to organize. But in playing defense, there's one thing that's a little discouraging to me. You see, when somebody is putting up and attacking you and you play defense, if you stop them, then you stay where you are. I don't want to stay where we are. I'm not satisfied with where we are. Because see, where we are right now is this economic crisis is hitting our members extremely hard. And for ESP, it's a triple whammy. First, there's layoffs. Then those who are there either have salary frozen or cut. Their benefits are either frozen or it costs more money out of your pocket to have them. And if that weren't enough, then they had increased workload. Cuts in the ESP area are almost what they call invisible cuts, because they assume all of the work will still be done. They're just less people. Really impacts workload. And even more than that, they have no idea what you do. They don't have a clue at what it takes to actually make the system work. I mean, that's why I started with that little humorous thing about an email. The idea that you could actually do that with the education support professionals gone, it's an impossibility. And so I'm not satisfied with where we are. We have to create an offense. We have to create an offense where you're going for something. You know, I grew up in a small town, 1,700, so we didn't have platoon football. We didn't have enough guys. In Iowa, yes. So you went both ways. Now, I liked playing defense. It was fun, but it's way more fun to score. See, because when you're on offense, that means you're going for something. When you're successful, you reach it. When you lose, when you're unsuccessful in an offense, you stay where you are. Well, that's where I want us to be as an organization. I want us to fight for where we're going. And I can tell you I get my energy for offense from 2 very simple places. Number 1, it's the why of public education. Why in 2012, why in the 21st century do we need public education in America? But more importantly, for you personally, why did you choose to go into education? I know it wasn't to join NEA. You didn't say, I want to be a member of NEA. Well, I guess I'll have to go work in a school district somewhere. It's not what happened. And see, whatever job you do, it's different when you do it in education. I mean, if you're a custodian in an office building at night when it's empty, that's really different than working in an elementary school. My wife is a legal secretary. You know, in all the years she's worked there, they've never run out of paper. And when something breaks, they just fix it. Isn't that amazing? And you know, when you're driving a Greyhound bus, it's a whole lot different than having 60 kids with your back turned to them, isn't it? So it's not It's different no matter what the occupation is when you choose to do it in education. But let me ask you this. Why are you still here? See, the answers to those two questions, why did you choose to work in education? Why, despite all the things they've come down on us with, why are you still here? And the answer to those two questions, see, that's where we get our passion and our commitment. That's why we need to take charge. We need to define our own future instead of allowing someone else to write what it ought to be. We need to lead our professions, and I'm saying that in the plural. And to lead profession, we ought to define quality, we ought to advocate for it, and we ought to own it. Because who in the heck knows better than you about what needs to be done? We need to celebrate who we are, what we know, and what we're able to do. Now, many of you heard me talk in the past about leading the profession in terms of teaching. But now we're going full speed. We're gearing up for our effort in leading the professions for education support professionals. We started last summer. As we moved into the fall, we did focus groups, and then we did our polling. We know what it means to our members. We know what they care about deeply. And you know what's amazing to me? 90% said the reason, the why did you choose to work in education? 90% said it was to make a difference in the life of children. That's what our members said. And we need to honor that and respect it and take advantage of it. They talked about the power of our professions. And they want professional standards, whether it be certification, licensure, or required training. But someone on the outside should not define what that is. I think the union has to define what that is. And then we ought to provide the training to our members to get it. Why in the world would we depend on somebody on the outside? The best way to fight privatization is to provide with what we already know and are able to do so that they can't compete. Because it's more than just cost. It's the people who care deeply in what they do each and every day. And we know how serious our members are about wanting to learn skills and to do better. You know, right now in this time in our history, we need education support professionals more than we ever had. And the NEA is doing everything they can to make that real. We just created the ESP Career Task Force. There are 26 on the NEA Board of Directors. There are 2 state presidents, 1 state vice president, and 1 treasurer who are ESP. We have the leadership for tomorrow with more than 80 graduates who are being elected and serving in positions all across this organization. And we have NC ESP with this leader, Laura, speaking out for ESP everywhere she goes. And even when she's not there, she's speaking out. There will be much said at this conference about organizing, about having to change. When people talk about change, some do it in a very inspirational way. They say, be the change you want to see in others. Some say it a little more humorously. Dilbert, he said, change is good, you go first. And I think that's probably the one that most people understand. Because wouldn't it be nice if all the other people changed so I wouldn't have to? Or wouldn't it be nice if someone else changed what was going on so I didn't have to do it? But the truth is, it doesn't work that way. There's only one person in the world that you get to change, and it's not your spouse. It's you. You get to decide. That's the power of deciding what you want to do. Now, my own theory of change is much simpler than all of these others. I think it has to do with satisfaction. If you're in the wealthiest 1% in this country, do you think you want anything to change? It's working pretty good for them right now. See, if you're satisfied with where you work and everywhere, why would you say, let's change it? But if you're dissatisfied, if deep down inside you are really dissatisfied, not only will you accept change, you will demand change. And you will demand respect. And we're not going to be quiet until we have it. We're not going to be quiet. You will not silence our voice. You have to be dissatisfied with where you are. When you leave this conference, I hope you are gloriously dissatisfied. Because with all the incredible training and skills you're going to develop and the knowledge you have, you're going to be better at kicking butt and taking name than you've ever been. That's what I want. I want you to be so dissatisfied that you can't wait to do something. Now, whenever the times get tough and you wonder, can I do it for another day? Could I do it for another week? Gosh, a month? I want you to think of something. This is what I think about. Think of the Montgomery bus boycott. See, that boycott had wonderful leaders, no doubt about it. But that's not what made it work. It was the people. For 381 days, no one rode a bus. Now, some of the leaders of that movement after 2 or 3 weeks said, we got a lot of concessions. Maybe we ought to call it off. And they said, no. 381 days. I want you to know in Montgomery, Alabama, the sun does not shine every day. Some days it rains. And where many of these workers lived, there were no sidewalks to where they worked. They had to get up an hour, 2 hours earlier to take care of their own family so they could walk to work, be on their feet all day long, and then walk home for 381 days. I want you to think about something. Ask yourself, what is it that you care so deeply about that you would change your very daily life every day for more than a year? That's how passionate and committed they were in a greater good about what it means about freedom and equality. And we need to feel that about the kids in America. The idea that the richest, most powerful nation in the world has designed a system that only graduates about 25 or 75% of the kids. 25% drop out. Unless you're African American and Hispanic, then it's closer to 50%. And these changes, they don't fluctuate like the Dow Jones average. Every single year it happens. Why do we tolerate it? It ought to just gnaw deep down inside so badly that you have to do something to change it. How dare we determine when a child enters kindergarten that we already know by the time they age 18 what will happen? Within 2 percentage points, we know how many will drop out. We know how many will be incarcerated, how many will be single parents, and we know how many will commit suicide. We know that the day they start kindergarten, and we are part of that system. It's not someone else. It's our system too. And we have to care deeply enough that we're willing to change what we do to get different results. There are 241 days until the election in November of 2012. 241. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to do differently than you've ever done before? Every single day for 241 days. You see, our jobs don't just depend on it. Our careers do. Our values do. Our belief system, our vision for this organization and America all depends on what we decide to do for 241 days. Now, I don't know what it is you believe you ought to do, but I'll tell you this is not the time to give up, give in, or give out. This is the time to act, to organize, to mobilize, to do something. And remember, we are the NEA. We can do this. There's no other organization in America who has what we have. There's no other organization in all 50 states, every congressional and legislative district, and over 14,000 school districts. Not anyone. So if we don't do it, who will? It's our job. It's our time to lead our professions and to lead America to a vision that we believe in as an organization, as individuals. We are NEA. Let's do it.